Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today is the last day of GarbAugust and today I'm going to be wrapping up all the books I've read in this month of August. And stay tuned for a special reading at the end of the video. Cheers. Okay everyone, I've already done reviews from week 1 to week 3, so let me just do a quick recap of all of those books that I've read, and then we can move into week 4 where there's a nice little surprise waiting. So in week number 1 we have Coma by Robin Cook, and of course this ticks off the box of the novel set in a hospital. It is an awesome medical thriller about a medical student who's at a hospital, and instead of going to lectures and instead of learning about what she should be learning, she uncovers a conspiracy, a dreadful, awful, horrifying conspiracy, and she finds herself increasingly alone in a battle to figure out what the hell's going on. Now this was a rereading for me and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars. That is Coma. Second up was Men's Adventure. That was the first prompt for that first week, and I picked up Tarzan and AntMan, and even though this is way on in the series, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It was a lacquer surprise, lacquer meaning very good surprise, and it was full of adventure and fun, excitement, and a little bit dark in places as well, with some very strange creatures, little Ant-men, as well as some giant cavemen and cavewomen. And Tarzan having to get out of some tight situations. But yeah, that was also a very, very good fun read for me, and that was another 4-star. That's Tarzan and AntMan. Okay, in week number 2, the first disappointing book that I read, and yeah, it was really disappointing for me, and that was Alligator by Shelley Katz. This covers, it speaks of a giant alligator with blood coming out of its mouth, kind of man-eating, massive, and we got very little alligator and a lot of other stuff in between. It was kind of dull, very bad characters, unlikable. I really didn't enjoy them that much, but yeah, so I gave this a 2-star, and it's sad because it had potential and there were some good things here and there, but the setting, the story, the characters did not hold my attention. That is Alligator. Cool cover though, I'm very glad I got it. Also in week 2 I read The Face That Must Die by Ramsey Campbell. I went into this book expecting quite a lot. It's a little bit disappointed. It got 3 stars from me, a paperback from hell, and it was just a little bit slow. The pacing was very, very slow. The main part of the story was a serial killer who's seriously psychotic, and there's a sense of serious paranoia and tension. But yeah, the characters weren't that great, particularly the victims as well. But I enjoyed parts of it, and the ending was actually pretty good. But overall it was a little bit of a letdown, and that's why it was a 3-star read for me. Okay, then the third book I read for the second week was Richard Lehman, Midnight's Lair, and Richard Lehman was one of those boxes I could tick off, and this was an excellent story, held underground and very claustrophobic, a lot of fun, and typical Lehman, very pervy, very adolescent. And by the way, speaking of pervy, yeah, if you hear my dog panting in the background, it's kind of suitable for what's coming soon. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. It's also very dark. There's some very depraved scenes, specifically in this hotel above these caves, which are a tourist attraction. There's some great characters and memorable moments, which I really enjoyed. Now really, if you want in-depth reviews of any of these, you need to go to my other catch-up videos. So I'm just flying through these. and that is Richard Lehman, Midnight's Lair. Okay, week number 3, you had to read a novelization or a screenplay. I read a novelization, that was The Omen by David Seltzer. Now I just need to point out that this book was actually kindly gifted to me on my emails, and along with a whole lot of others by Andre. I haven't heard from him for a while, but if you're hearing me, Andre, I say thank you very, very much. I'm going to get to the other ones in future as well, and that was a great gift from you. The Omen was a second read for me, and I enjoyed it even more the second time. It was very, very, very good. 5-star read, and it's just so tense and so chilling about the son of the devil walking the earth. Well, at the beginning he's still a baby, but he comes into his own in the later Omen 2 and Omen 3. But it's just a fantastic novel, and as I said, I did do a review of that as well. So that's The Omen. Okay, another novel I managed to fit in, even though it's not part of GarbAugust, was I found finally Offseason by Jack Ketchum. And it was on an online library, and I discussed that in a previous review. That is freaking brilliant. I absolutely loved it, but it is terrifying, it is horrifying, and it is extremely graphic, with gore and cannibalism and all sorts of stuff happening, and it's not for everyone. If you have a faint heart, don't read Offseason. If you enjoy some extreme stuff like I do, or I'm really starting to, then you might find it a great read. That is Offseason by Jack Ketchum. And finally, as my week 3 came to an end, I read another Stephen King novel. This was a hard case crime novel, and that was Colorado Kid. Now, I enjoyed it. It was fun, but it was more like a cozy light mystery than any kind of horror going on. I enjoyed it for what it was. Actually try and uncover all these clues and to get into the bottom of who the Colorado Kid is, where did he come from, how did he die. I really enjoyed it just as the journey. And I say the journey because the book actually ends on a very open-ended note. But in this case, yes, it is about the journey, not the destination. And it was a very fun novel for me. It was very different. I think Stephen King was taking a bit of a risk in the way that he went about it. But I know that a lot of people really enjoyed this novel, but a lot of people couldn't stand it because of the ending. I was okay with it. I had a fun time while I was reading it. So I just took it for what it was, and that was 3 stars for me. And that is Colorado Kid. And I suppose with the cover, you can kind of say a bit of nudity on the cover, but yeah, it was a fun read. Okay, now we reach week 4, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more depth. But I've got to say this is probably the most disappointing week for me in terms of quantity. And the first book that I read that really slowed me down to a snail's pace was another paperback from hell, and that is Entombed by Guy N. Smith. Now, I have read some of Guy N. Smith's other stuff, which I actually enjoyed. But this book was just so repetitive and so slow. It's about a priest, a Jesuit priest who happens to also be an exorcist. And I don't know how this works, maybe this is how it works, but he's married with 2 kids. And his wife leaves him and his kids leave him, and basically they take everything from him. And he gets a girlfriend. He's lost his faith in God. I don't know if he's allowed to get a girlfriend as a priest. I don't know how these things work, but yeah, and they kind of flee to the north of Wales to try and get some peace and quiet. But underneath these mines, it kind of sounds a little bit familiar to that Richard Lehman novel, but it just didn't work for me. Underneath these mines, where there's also a tourist attraction, is this terrible evil. You go in these mines and you hear the screaming and carrying on. Now, I tried really hard to enjoy this, and I tried hard to read this novel. I might pick it up again, but I'm afraid I DNF'd this one. I got about halfway through and I just couldn't care less. I do want to find out what's making those sounds underground. I do want to find out where that evil comes from. But at the moment, I just couldn't care less. So what I did is there were some other books that I still had to read. In fact, there's 2 I haven't read for this month. But I decided to pick up something a little bit different. And it's been my last book for this week and for this month. And that is The Shadow of the Chic, which is a Harlequin's romance by Nina Bruns. And yeah, let me just tell you what it's about quickly. It's set in Egypt, and it's supposed to be a lot of adventurous stuff happening on. There's gods, there's demigods, there's vampires, there's shapeshifters, and there's all sorts of intrigue, and there's a lot of threat of danger and a lot of threat of violence. There's even an imminent war that's going to happen. Does anything really come of all of this? No. The story revolves around this shapeshifter you can turn into and this is your shapeshifter right here on the right. And he can turn into like a hawk or a raven. I think it's a hawk. Maybe an eagle? No, a hawk. And on the left you've got an archaeologist. Very sexy archaeologist. They don't make archaeologists like they do anymore, I'm afraid. The whole story revolves around these two. And any kind of increase in tension in the story, it's getting hot in here. It's getting a bit hot. Any kind of increase in tension and danger in the story results in these two kind of coming together, kind of going apart. Sort of sexual tension throughout this novel. And of course, lots and lots of sex. Yeah, no, it's getting way too hot for me. Give me a second, please. That's bad. Now I feel better. Okay, so where was I? You have the Chic, who's a hawk. He's got supernatural powers. He's a shapeshifter. And he's got other powers as well. He has this aura that women find very attractive. And you've got this archaeologist. Yeah, I haven't seen an archaeologist look like that before. And the story revolves around their sort of sexual tension. Some stage that they completely with each other, and other times it's like no, I don't want you, I don't want to be here, you're supernatural. And he says, no, I don't want to, like I leave all the other women, I get bored of them, and then I love you, and it just carries on like that through the whole novel. Look, to be fair, a lot of horror writers and fantasy authors have tried to put sex in their books to sell, and I kind of figured out that this book, it's about sex, and it does it right. Some of the sex scenes are kind of appropriate, and they're a hell of a lot more juicy than some of the stuff that you see in horror novels. So what I'd like to do before we leave is just give you a little reading of just a couple of passages, but just minus a few words here and there, because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube or the algorithm. Okay, so let's start with just the first passage. Are you ready, children? Her shirt fell to the floor, and his lips moved down her throat, trailing along her collarbone and across her shoulder, leaving sparks of unbearable desire along the way. He unhooked her and tossed it aside. When it was in mid-air, he made a movement with his fingers, and it disintegrated in a short burst of flame and smoke. He is apparently that powerful, yes. Then his hands were on her neck She gasped, as he cupped them and flicked his thumbs across her. As he had when they were on the camel. Yes, on the way there, he couldn't wait till he got to the tent. He had to do things to her on the camel as well. An excruciating need flamed through her. He and her, until she thought she would go mad. She couldn't take this much longer. Please, she softly begged, I want you. I know, he murmured, shifting to unfasten her riding breeches and inch them down over her hips. I have bespelled you. Oh, that's another thing. He can actually cast a spell on her to make her want him. But then in half the book, he actually wants her to love him. So he doesn't cast the spell anymore. And it seems to work. Okay, let's move to another paragraph. This one is a little bit more tricky. Might get in trouble with this one. She didn't flee. Instead, she leaned back on his pillows and regarded him with lashes lowered to a slant. His answering smile felt as edgy as a blade of his scimitar. That's a knife, by the way, or sword. He stripped the rest off his clothes. He stripped off the rest of his clothes and stood for a brief, pregnant moment, letting her take in the fury of. He was as a granite column. He had not. Nor had Seth. Okay, Seth, no. Seth is the vampire. And what's going to happen here is we're going to have a little, how do you call it? A menage a trois. The vampire shapeshifter in our archaeology. Yeah. The door opened, then clicked closed. The power of Seth's presence rolled over them, restrained, simmering, infinitely patient in its voracious hunger. Her rose and fell, her flushed with vivid colour. She licked her lips, hesitated, then with a slow, deliberate movement, she parted. Poor Shaheen. He was so ready. In a single fluid motion, he was on the bed and on top of her. He gripped her under her knees and he captured her eyes. Do it, she answered. His unspoken question. And he... Yeah, okay, that's done. Okay, right, so everyone. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what I've read. Shadow of the Chic. And as I say, I'm going to reiterate. I gave it 3 stars. I was going to give it 2 stars, but it was actually a fun book for the right audience. This is not the book that I'm going to read on my channel again. It's not the type of book I read. But hey, Cliff's Dark Gems. There's a shadow of the Chic. Although I wonder what the shadow actually is. And it's quite a bit of darkness, and it's nocturne, nighttime. And there's vampires, and there's a little bit of blood. But yeah, it's not my kind of book. But I had really fun reading it for GarbAugust. And it was a fun way to actually round off the month. And I hope you had a little bit of fun with me doing some reading to you as well. Yeah, here's hope this doesn't get me in any hot water. But yeah, it was fun. So let me know what you read in GarbAugust. What did you think of the month? Did you enjoy? You're looking forward to next year already like I am? And anyway, take care of yourselves. Keep those pages turning. Be sure to like and subscribe as well. If you enjoyed my content, take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.